I think, the issues and resolution of that has saved so much time and efficiency. It's made our leadership team more honest and open and transparent, as opposed to people being afraid to speak up because they might get yelled at or shut down. And in the company culture too. We always like to say you have a company culture. We have nice slogans on the walls and stuff like that, but actually getting our core values and actually, meaning them and believing them and not just being some generic words on the wall, I think has been critical as well for us. And once people are buying into those core values, they realize that it's not an environment where people are going to be belittled. We're going to listen to everything. We might not agree, but we can at least hash it out and be done. All right, Chris Stewart, visionary. We got to a point where we were a $12 million, $15 million, and then last year a $20 million revenue company, and we're just too many systems and processes and people, and we just kept throwing people at problems, and profitability hurts when you do that. And then that I got to spend a few days with and really see their entire operation, very similar in size, entirely different industry, and just how all their departments and structure and it was all foreign language to me at that point. They had all their rocks on the wall on paper, and I didn't know what the heck any of that was. But just listening to even the guys in the shop or the field guys, they were speaking the same language that upper management was speaking, and it was just cohesive and very efficient and very impressive. Yeah, so initially the challenges are obviously a lot of people don't like change, and I love change. It just shakes everything up a little bit, gets everybody on edge, so that's good. We had structured, we'll call it staff meetings and stuff like that, similar type things. We had an organizational chart, but it was just more of a document that you sort of glance at every once in a while, not sort of a living, breathing, I don't even know if you call it a document, but a living, breathing thing. Our accountability chart is always changing, always being modified, and we're always playing with parts and pieces to get the best flow and everything we can do. And initially our meetings were very unproductive. Not nearly resistant, just afraid of change and wondering what the heck's happening next. Is I going to lose a job? I don't know if people actually think that or not, but what's going to happen next? But then seeing the structure of the meetings themselves and the efficiency and the data. I mean, we had all the data, and really the data is very similar. We're still tracking the same things, but having it all in one place and where it's quick reporting, there's no BS to it. We're just boom, 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 on to the next. Holding everybody accountable for to-dos and their rocks and milestones and stuff like that. And then obviously the issues, having a place to park issues, not to talk about them at all until we get to the meetings, is the biggest thing that I see, biggest improvement. And, when you tell people an hour and a half meeting, and me personally, I'm like, man, that's a long time. I don't know if I have the time for that, selfishly. But when you see the efficiency of the hour and a half, it saves, I don't even know, 2-3 hours a week, or maybe even more, of just BS conversations where we're just going to talk about something and then talk about it in a week later and not resolve it. So I think that's the biggest thing for us, because we have tons of issues. Growing so fast, and just in the business we're in, the industry we're in, there's a lot of moving parts, and from manufacturing to hiring to sales, and everything's got to be cohesive. We're not just selling widgets, we're manufacturing things, and that presents a whole new. We're beginning to see some of the results. I don't think we can say that we've seen the immediate results, because obviously big company, big operation, lots of moving parts. Changes do take a little bit of time to implement and to actually see the end results of it. But from an efficiency standpoint, I see it in really all of our departments. I've always been against that, not against it, but just thought, we don't need that stuff. But just implementing that and what's that brought to it, I think has helped us from a retainment standpoint and recruiting and all that, because one of our biggest problems is people. And I think getting the right people that buy into the core values, that do what we, that just live that company culture, we're becoming more profitable. We're not just throwing people at problems, we're being more systematic and actually vetting people a lot more. And I think ultimately that helps. The restructuring of our accountability chart and continuing to play with parts and pieces has helped profitability and obviously efficiencies. And now, going forward, as we continue down the journey, I think the cash flow drivers and stuff like that, I think that's something that's going to be huge for us, and it's something that we never would have even entertained a year ago. We wouldn't have had those conversations. We just kept going as hard as we can, and now we realized, there's low-hanging fruit that we need to pick up that money and put it straight to the bottom line. So the company that I visited in South Florida, they did not do the 90 program. They had spreadsheets everywhere. They had stuff all over the walls. I mean, visually, I guess it was really nice because they had all the rocks on the walls and the tracking and all the milestones they would handwrite in and stuff like that. But my biggest concern, because I before we engaged in this, I'd read the books and all, listened to the audio books and thought, this all sounds great, but there's no way that our team can even begin to do this. Yeah, this sounds great, but we can't manage this. We can't organize all this stuff. We can't do it by ourselves. So obviously that's when we engage you. But then another concern was just the data. So the program is phenomenal. I mean, it makes everything streamlined for us. In our industry, we're not a tech company, so there are some limitations where people aren't comfortable with technology and computers, and we have some of our guys that don't even speak English and stuff are using the software to a certain extent, and that's huge. And the software itself was, I'd say, a critical point in me deciding to go forward, because I figured I could implement it, or we could implement it together. But then maintaining that going forward scared me. Like, how does this go? I mean, we can get it all set up and start, and then it's just going to be something that we have to manage going forward. I don't know if we're capable of doing that. I would say it's done for me, able to step back a little bit and get out of the day-to-day of just running the business and just step back and look at it. But before, we didn't have the tools and things in place where I felt comfortable to do that. So it was more like I didn't feel comfortable stepping away from certain departments or certain positions because there was no accountability, there was no tracking, there was no, the tools that we have in place allows me to monitor things from a 30,000-foot view rather than be in the trenches every day. So that aspect has allowed me to focus on other things, just new products, new territories, new ideas, new stuff like that, where usually we would just take what's coming to us and not really think about it. And now I'm able to sit back and analyze things and still hold everyone accountable and monitor the departments and reporting and all that on a daily basis, get their L10 reports and look at the meetings, summaries. I don't need to be in those meetings. I can look at an email summary and figure out, all right, this is stuff they talked about, great, and move on. And it takes me 10 minutes, as opposed to sitting there and listening to it all for 2 hours. So that's been huge for me, and I think going forward even more, it's to the point now where I can really engage in that visionary role, because I'm very comfortable with the way all the departments are going, and the L10's going down, in some departments 2 and 3 different levels, which is really encouraging to see guys that do construction tasks or guys that they're having L10s, and then those issues are flowing up to operations L10, and sometimes those issues are coming up to leadership L10, and that's just really good to see. And the stuff that really comes to the surface in a leadership L10 is critical, and we realize they weren't able to solve it, so that's good, but we're not dealing with all the other crap that they can handle on their own. We mesh very well together. Not too corporate, just very down to earth, realistic, been in the trenches, gets it, not just somebody that's read a book and is going to go implement it, somebody that's actually done it himself, for himself, and now he's going to help other people do it. That was critical for me with you. Obviously, the personalities blend very well. A lot of people, small business owners have a personality and a DNA to them, and sometimes you don't mesh well with somebody that's just behind a computer and teaching out of a book and saying this. You have real life experience. You can sympathize with the real problems that we have, and it was just the best fit. Hands down, there was no questions asked after I talked to the other people that you were the first person I talked to. Talked to people after that, and there was no questions that we were going to go with you.